broadcasting to you from my basement with what I think is a pretty important message as we get on what I hope is the north side of this thing. Depending upon which news station you watch, we could be in the middle of it, we could be near the end of it, or at the brand spanking new beginning of it, depending upon how they want to look at it or how we want to look at it. And I don't think anyone really knows. But what I do know is that as we've analyzed businesses and taken a look at things as they've gone on, our industry has performed very well as this whole situation has gone on. And while that's true, I think there is an issue that many of us haven't noticed yet that has been snowballing and will snowball more as we move towards the second turn of lockdowns. A lot of them get extended now into middle of May. And that has to do with our agreement customers. A lot of companies, as I'm listening to their phone calls, talking to the contractors, one of the things I'm finding is that their agreement customers have been rescheduling. They were rescheduled for May, and now they're going to get ready to reschedule a lot of them for June. And this is going to have a snowball effect that's going to eat up all of the available time. May, June, and July are the prime months for replacement, prime months for putting new customers on the books, and they are for a contractor the months who make or break your business. So my message today is to move those people out of those months. Go ahead, extend their agreements, but don't run those agreement calls in May, June, or July when this thing gets unlocked. Go ahead and push them off until September, October, so that you have availability when this lockdown comes up to tap into the pent-up demand and to go after the opportunities that are there for you, even with your own customer base. Because if you don't, you're going to be spending most of your time in homes that you've already done installs in, not making any money. And when the end of the year comes, you'll find that your business is really far behind, even if it's doing well right now. So that's the main message I have for you today. Let me show you how I came to that conclusion. So if you'll remember back to the video I did earlier this year on agreement customers, if you take a look at this, when we take a look at this study, we can kind of see what I'm worried about. So just to remind those of you who have seen it a while ago or haven't seen it before, we took a look at over 21,000 households. That's more than 85,000 transactions, more than $57 million worth of business. We actually broke those out into two groups, agreement customers and non-agreement customers, to try to look at the timeline. What was the difference between the times you went into houses for non-agreement customers versus agreement customers, based on the idea that agreement customers should be driving business into your non-essential months, into the shoulder months. And as we looked at that, what we found is that that really wasn't the case. When we looked at the seasonality of total households, we see that the vast majority of the houses you go to are May, June, July, in some cases August. And when we took a look at our agreement customer households, that held true again. May, June, and July were the peak times for those visits, which are also the busiest months of the year. And my fear here is that because the agreement customers that you were getting in March and April and May are all going to be ballooned now, because they are, when we're listening to phone calls, and Stokastic has tracking lines for hundreds of contractors. We listen to thousands of phone calls every day. The one place that we're still hearing cancellations are on those agreement customer lines. And Mike and I here at Stokastic talk to dozens of contractors every day. Some weeks we talk to 40 or 50 contractors over the course of just a couple days. And in that time frame, as we've been talking to contractors during this whole event, what we're hearing is that they are still having those agreement customers wanting to reschedule. And a lot of them had planned to reschedule for a May visit, get in early May, that we're going to be out of lockdown mid-April. Those lockdowns are now extending into May and in some cases June. And even here in St. Louis, we are now have a lockdown for either the city or the county, where the lockdown, it doesn't even have an ending. They're going to reassess May 15th if they're going to keep the lockdown going or if they're going to give it an end date. And we're seeing more and more of that across the country. As those get extended, my expectation is that you'll continue to see agreement customers start to push off those visits. But one of these days,
we're going to get out of this lockdown. And if that happens where it's likely to happen now, which is June, you're going to have a lot of pent-up demand for those agreement visits. You're going to have the individuals that you didn't see in the end of March, that you didn't see out throughout the month of April, and you didn't see through the month of May. Well, if you look here, that's nearly 4 times as many agreement visits as you would normally do across June or July. And you're going to have all this pent-up demand, but you're also going to have opportunity. As well as this has gone for a lot of contractors, and almost every contractor that I speak to is having a fantastic year, or a year that's as good as the year they had last year, which was a fantastic year. The biggest complaint I hear is that I'm hitting budget, but I'm not hitting plan. So I'm hitting the number I needed to hit, and I'm hitting the number that I hit last year, but I'm not exceeding the goals by what I had, which is great. It makes it great to be in our industry. I mean, it's far better than restaurants and gyms are doing right now. And, as you look across the country, 25% of the industries are basically shuttered right now. And that's having a snowball effect on other careers, other jobs. A huge chunk of America has been laid off and is unemployed now. And in industries, huge numbers of people have taken pay cuts. We've been affected in my house. My wife has taken a significant pay cut in her industry. And that's happening again and again across the country. So there's ramifications for that. And we've come through that very rosily, with most contractors being able to continue to work, continue to do things. But this snowball is going to have its own back-end problem. And the back-end problem is those agreement customers, if you keep pushing them off and keep telling them that you're going to come visit them, next month, eventually those are going to come due. The problem is that you make most of your revenue, if we take a look at the seasonality of sales, May, June, and July. And specifically, June and July are the high point months. Not that May's bad, but May already is probably going to suffer some damage, which means the normal demand, the normal replacements, and all of this is driven by replacements. The entire difference in seasonality is driven by the replacement sales that you're doing. It's why the summer's so good and that you have to scrape by to get through the winter, or in areas where you have a stronger winter, the winter's so good and you have to scrape by to get through the spring or the fall. If you have all of that pent-up demand for agreement visits and you try to meet all of those obligations in May, June, or July, what's going to happen is you're going to have less opportunity to go out and find new customers than you normally do. So that'll hurt sales during the most critical 3 months of your entire business. More than that, there's going to be some additional opportunities. Some businesses won't make it through this. Some businesses have left their customers high and dry, and there's going to be some pent-up demand by non-agreement customers. There's going to be pent-up demand on people who are limping by on systems right now who would normally be replacing. And if you have capacity to run those jobs, there may just be some opportunity come this summer that you wouldn't otherwise have because someone else would be filling them. If you have the capacity and your competitor doesn't because he's running those agreement calls, then you'll have the opportunity to grow your business while his business might suffer because he is out servicing those customers. Now you might say, well, then what's the solution? I've made an agreement with these people and I've told them that I'm going to come to their house and service. The answer that, I've worked with hundreds of contractors. I've talked to more than 40 contractors about this just this week alone. And the number one thing that we have all agreed upon is that it is very dangerous to go into that situation and not have a plan. And right now they don't. In most of the contractors I've talked to were surprised when I brought this up. When I asked the question, what are you doing about those agreement customers if your ban gets extended? And most of them didn't have an answer. And so as we talk through it, it seems like the best answer is the following. To go ahead and when someone wants to extend that agreement, or extend that date to the next time that you come to their house, so say not May but June, is to go ahead and offer them an additional 6 months of their agreement and move them to the first spot you can in late August, early September. And you do that by just telling them the truth, letting them know that you have a lot of agreement customers who are all moving to this time, so that if people are moving to June or July, or July or August to try to run these agreements, rather than running out there late in the season when it's hot and when you're trying to service all of these other agreement customers, what you're going to do is you're going to extend their benefits by 6 months. But you're still going to make them a priority customer. They're going to get all the same benefits, and they'll still be a priority if they have a breakdown. And let them know why you're doing that. Because people have pushed these off, and because you have a lot of agreement customers that you would have already serviced, there won't be enough time for you to go to all of those if there are people who have systems that break down. And you need to make a priority to be able to get to those houses so that you can keep everyone cool and comfortable. So because of that, and because of their patience and their understanding, you're not only going to make them first call in the fall, you're also going to extend those benefits by 6 months. And again, during that whole time frame, they'll still get the benefit of being the front end of your call. If we can do that, and if you can walk through it, even if it's just 400 or 500 customers, that's 400 or 500 opportunities where you can now go out and service a customer who is otherwise been disregarded by their company. Maybe their company has faltered, or just have the capacity to be able to run the calls that you weren't able to run while all of this has been going on, because there should be some pent-up demand from that. So if we take a look at it that way, I think there's some real opportunity here. And I think if we attack it correctly, it actually puts us in a better position, because if our competitors are stacking up those agreements and instead we're stacking up goodwill with customers by explaining to them the situation, which they're likely to understand, and they don't really want to get stuck sitting around the house waiting for you after lockdown's over. Let's be honest, everybody's going to want to get out, right? Everyone's going to want to be going and doing things, and sitting around and waiting for you in the first week or two, when all of this is over, instead of being able to go out and go to a restaurant, go to a movie, go to a shopping mall, go see family members, right? They would much rather be doing that. So explaining that, making it a benefit for the customer, you get two things, which is you're going to build the goodwill with the customer, and you're going to have the competitive advantage if those opportunities are there. And if I'm wrong, and if this isn't an issue, no big deal, because all you did was build goodwill with some customers and be able to build that goodwill within your community. So think about it. Take a look at your club and agreement customer situation and see if you think this is a good plan for you. If it is, or if you'd like to know what your seasonality with your club members or your agreement customers looks like, reach out to me. I'd be happy to take a look. Otherwise, be safe, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks.